that she was hunting for a man in England from 2013 onwards, when her marriage had crashed and she couldn't find anyone in Canada at the time. And she wanted wealth and she wanted fame.
She was hoping to have intimate meetings with Howie Mandel. Mrs. Mandel got wind of this.
Meghan Markle was even open to something romantic with Piers Morgan.
She was meeting with Piers Morgan for, I believe, reasons beyond being friends.
Meghan tends to get a bit more manic when things aren't going particularly well. You can almost feel the force and emphasis by her to try and make this Hollywood thing work.
She also, P. Dinah, was, before Harry, desperate to find a British man.
Meghan is in a losing battle because there is a lot that is still going to come out about her. She definitely wants us to have a certain image of her, and she just doesn't want things that she's...
Tom Bower has, according to his ongoing commentary, allegedly laid out a list of men linked to Meghan Markle's early social climbing narrative. And the picture he paints is loud, messy, and packed with names that supposedly span footballers, pop stars, chefs, and even royals she once admired before Harry entered the frame. Lizzie Cundy still recalls a night back in 2013 that she says shifted everything in the way she viewed Meghan Markle, describing it like a sudden pivot in energy the moment Meghan arrived in London with a fresh identity, a new environment, and what critics would later call a very strategic sense of direction. At that point, Meghan had already moved through a major life change, ending her marriage with Trevor Engelson, and critics often describe the split in blunt terms, comparing it to something quick and final, like dropping a subscription without hesitation.
Trevor Engelson was very hesitant to put her forward for anything because Meghan was an embarrassment, no matter what she was put forward for. And
same Meghan Markle, usually whinging and moaning about the press. She's flown in from Canada. And I wanted to be with my mates. I was like, no, I want to sit with my friends and have a giggle. He was like, no, look after her. But actually, we got on really, really well. And we did have a huge giggle. And she wanted to find an English boyfriend. So I said, look, I'll help you. So I was going through my phone. There was Ashley Cole, Chelsea footballer.
Sealing it off without public closure or lingering ties. Within the first encounter between Meghan and Lizzie Cundy, reportedly over a casual drink, the conversation allegedly jumped straight into ambition-driven territory, with Meghan asking to be introduced to a well-known British footballer almost immediately. Skipping what most would consider normal social pacing entirely, Tom Bower has repeatedly referenced this alleged moment in interviews, framing it as symbolic of a larger pattern he claims defines Meghan's early approach to relationships and networking, suggesting that nothing in her social interactions was accidental. Everything had direction, intent, and outcome in mind. The name that allegedly came up in that conversation was Ashley Cole, a figure widely recognised in UK football circles, known for his time with Arsenal, Chelsea, and the England national team. But by that period, his public image was heavily shaped by controversy and media backlash. At that time, Ashley Cole was still under intense public scrutiny due to a widely reported cheating scandal involving Cheryl Cole, and in the UK press landscape, his reputation had taken a serious hit, making him one of the most criticised sports personalities in circulation. According to Lizzie Cundy's account, she declined the request outright.
She knew exactly how to play. And the point about Meghan is, it's easy to dislike her. But the point about her is that in her own terms, she is an astonishing success. She came from nothing, not a very successful actress. She had no money. She had no future after the Suits series in Canada. And suddenly she's an international star with quite a lot of money. And of course, in her terms, that's a great success.
She always intended to go back to Hollywood and use her title to pursue her career. And they went there, and undoubtedly at the beginning, it was absolutely brilliant.
Saying she knew him personally and understood the implications. And in that moment, she reportedly interpreted the request not as casual curiosity, but as a calculated social move wrapped in charm and confidence. Tom Bower continues to circle back to this anecdote, presenting it as part of a broader theory that Meghan approached relationships less as personal connections and more as structured opportunities where introductions, meetings, and friendships allegedly served a purpose beyond surface-level socializing. Critics echoing Bauer's framing often argue that rejection didn't slow her down, but instead pushed her to expand her reach across different social circles, moving from football culture into entertainment and music scenes with increasing persistence and digital outreach. By 2015, according to these accounts, Meghan was reportedly engaging with British pop culture figures through social media platforms, particularly Twitter, where informal direct messaging blurred the lines between fandom, networking, and personal outreach. One of the first names mentioned in this phase is Matt Cardle, an X Factor winner known in the UK for his vocal style and brief mainstream spotlight.
And I thought how you handled all that madness with Meghan was really good, because this is years ago, right? Before she's met Prince, she didn't even know Prince Harry. You admired her at a performance. You admired her at a performance. I mean,
exactly. I mean, it was so little then, if not nothing, and it's nothing now. Do you know what I mean?
So she got back. No, but she got back in touch, and I think that's interesting, because you did this. See, Piers Morgan is raging because he said that she ghosted him. But with you guys, it never got to anywhere because you had your girlfriend.
Like I say, it was nothing. It was absolutely nothing, and it's just funny what can be made of nothing nowadays.
Indeed.
And the interaction allegedly began with friendly admiration and an attempt to initiate contact during her visits to the UK. Reports suggest that Meghan reached out expressing admiration and interest in meeting. But according to Matt Cardle's silence on the matter, the conversation never developed further, effectively ending in what modern social media users would simply call being ghosted without explanation. It is often highlighted in commentary that despite her later global fame and royal status, at that time, she was still navigating the same digital spaces as everyone else, where messages could easily be ignored, left unread, or quietly forgotten without consequence. Another name brought into this narrative is Max George from the band The Wanted, a pop group that had significant presence in the UK music scene and growing recognition internationally, especially among younger audiences during that period. According to accounts referenced in Bauer's commentary, the interaction followed a similar pattern of friendly messages, admiration, and attempts at casual connection, but ultimately did not progress into anything sustained or meaningful at that time. Max George himself has, in later recollections, downplayed the interaction, describing it as casual and not particularly memorable.
Before Meghan Markle had her prince, she had a chef, Chef Corey. Corey Vitiello is a celebrity chef who dated Meghan for 2 years while she was shooting her TV show Suits in Toronto, the city where Corey owns a chain of chicken rotisserie restaurants called Flock. One big question, was Meghan dating Corey at the time she had that fateful blind date with Prince Harry? One published report in Britain says she was still Corey Vitiello's partner when Harry asked for her number.
And even admitted that he only recognized her identity later on when her name re-emerged in global headlines connected to Prince Harry. This contrast between later royal visibility and earlier social media interactions is frequently used by commentators to emphasize how quickly public perception can shift when someone moves from private networking into global media attention. Tom Bauer uses these examples to reinforce his claim that Meghan was actively reaching out within celebrity circles rather than being passively pursued, presenting a narrative where ambition and social mobility intersect through digital communication and entertainment industry connections. Meanwhile, attention shifts in the narrative to Corey Vitiello, a Canadian celebrity chef with a strong professional reputation, who is described in these accounts as having been in a serious relationship with Meghan during the period leading up to her meeting with Prince Harry. Corey is often portrayed in commentary as someone who believed the relationship was stable and ongoing, with shared living arrangements implied, routine domestic life in place, and expectations of continuity rather than sudden disruption. The most controversial part of this narrative, as repeated by critics and commentators, is the claim that Meghan was still living with Corey Vitiello around the same time she travelled for the now famous blind date with Prince Harry, a detail that continues to fuel debate in tabloid discussions. According to this framing, the timing of events becomes the central issue, with overlapping relationships presented as evidence of conflicting timelines, although these claims remain heavily contested and discussed through media interpretation rather than confirmed fact. Supporters of this narrative often argue that the public version of events has shifted over time, suggesting that earlier reporting was adjusted or refined as Meghan's relationship with Harry became more prominent and globally scrutinized. In this version of events, Cory Vitiello is described as discovering the shift in his relationship status through public media coverage rather than private conversation, a detail often emphasized to highlight the shock and suddenness of celebrity relationship exposure. The image painted in commentary is one of ordinary domestic routine being disrupted by global headlines, where private life and public narrative collide in a way that leaves little space for private clarification or personal closure. Tom Bower extends this broader narrative further by suggesting that Meghan's interest in royal circles did not begin with Prince Harry, but allegedly existed long before their meeting, with particular attention given to Prince William as an earlier figure of fascination in her media consumption and public commentary history. Old blog content attributed to Meghan's lifestyle writing era is frequently referenced in these discussions, including posts about royal weddings, fashion commentary, and admiration for members of the British royal family, which critics claim show early interest in that world. These materials are often described as being removed or no longer publicly accessible, though commentators argue that archived versions and screenshots continue to circulate online, keeping the discussion active in digital spaces. The recurring claim in Bower's framing is that nothing disappears entirely in the internet age, where deleted posts can resurface through archives, reposts, and commentary threads, maintaining a persistent record of earlier expressions and interests. Even as the narrative builds through these interconnected stories, each segment is used by commentators to construct a larger interpretation of ambition, social navigation, and the blurred line between personal relationships and public positioning in high-profile environments. And the discussion, as framed in this ongoing commentary space, continues to circle around those early years in London, where connections were forming, messages were being sent, and future public identities were still far from fully defined. A heavily circulated strand of online commentary begins by pointing to what some claim was a so-called vision board, allegedly linked to Meghan Markle's early years in Toronto, described in narrative discussions as a collection of royal imagery supposedly placed on a bedroom wall during her time as a relatively unknown actress, working on smaller television roles that had limited global reach. In this interpretation, commentators often claim that Prince William appeared prominently in the center of that imagery, framed as the ultimate symbol of royal prestige, while critics argue this detail is used more as a storytelling device than a verifiable fact, designed to emphasize admiration for royal life rather than any literal intent or plan. At the time being referenced, William was already firmly established in public life alongside Catherine, with a stable family structure and global recognition, making him, in the eyes of commentators, an unreachable figure in both personal and public terms, which fuels the dramatic framing used in online narratives. From there, the commentary shifts into a more metaphorical tone, with writers describing a closed front door scenario, suggesting that certain social or royal pathways were never realistically accessible, and this imagery is often used in online discourse to dramatize social boundaries and hierarchy rather than reflect actual events. Within this style of storytelling, Prince Harry is introduced as a contrasting figure in the narrative, often described in commentary as more emotionally open or publicly vulnerable during certain periods of his life, particularly following widely reported personal challenges and intense media scrutiny. However, it is important to note that these interpretations vary widely, and many observers argue that such comparisons are heavily shaped by hindsight storytelling, where later events are used to reframe earlier, unrelated circumstances into a simplified narrative structure. The tone then escalates in some online discussions, where critics claim that Meghan was present at various London social events during her early visits, with unnamed witnesses often referenced in commentary spaces, though these claims are generally not supported by consistent or independently verified evidence. Some of these narratives describe her behavior in social settings as highly strategic or highly aware of networking dynamics, but neutral interpretations suggest that such behavior is also typical of individuals working within entertainment, media, or public-facing industries where social engagement is a normal part of professional life. The conversation then moves into more controversial territory in online spaces, where certain commentators use highly charged language such as hunting or targeting wealthy individuals, though these descriptions are widely debated and often criticized for being speculative, exaggerated, or lacking reliable sourcing. In many of these discussions, there is an attempt to connect her early acting and modeling environments with broader luxury social circles, sometimes referred to loosely as elite travel or high-end hospitality scenes, where wealthy individuals and entertainers may intersect socially during events or travel-based networking. Some online narratives go further and attempt to link these environments with broader global wealth networks, including high-profile business, political, or celebrity circles. But these connections are typically presented without verifiable evidence and remain part of internet speculation rather than documented fact. However, opposing viewpoints emphasize that entertainment industry professionals frequently interact with high-net-worth individuals without any deeper implication, and that networking does not automatically equate to intent, strategy, or personal agenda beyond career development. The narrative then becomes more intense in some corners of online discussion, where references are made to widely known controversial figures and historical scandals. But these associations are often speculative, indirect, and heavily debated, lacking clear evidentiary grounding. Some commentary attempts to link social environments across different time periods and locations into a single connected storyline. But analysts caution that this type of interpretation often relies on assumptions rather than confirmed relationships or documented interactions. What emerges from this pattern is a blending of partial information, public appearances, and internet speculation, which then gets reshaped into a more dramatic narrative arc. That circulates widely in social media commentary spaces, where royal stories attract strong emotional engagement. Critics of Meghan's public image often use this type of narrative construction to explain perceived gaps or omissions in interviews, particularly when she discusses her past by focusing on major milestones such as her upbringing, acting career, and eventual relationship with Prince Harry. Supporters and media analysts, however, argue that public figures routinely condense their personal histories for clarity, privacy, and narrative focus, especially when transitioning into roles under global scrutiny, where every detail is heavily examined and often misinterpreted. The discussion then shifts again toward media framing, where some commentators claim that early biographical narratives were simplified over time to align with the structure of a royal romance story that became globally recognized after her engagement to Prince Harry. At the same time, media scholars point out that evolving public biographies are standard practice in celebrity culture, where individuals refine their personal storytelling as their public roles expand and their audience shifts dramatically. As the commentary continues, the tone in some online spaces becomes increasingly conspiratorial, interpreting omissions as intentional concealment, while critics argue that absence of detail is not evidence of wrongdoing, but rather a normal aspect of public storytelling and privacy management. Ultimately, this entire narrative thread reflects a mix of interpretation, speculation, and selective emphasis, where different observers construct very different meanings from the same limited set of public-facing information, often shaped more by perspective than by verifiable fact. And as the conversation continues across online platforms, the same themes keep resurfacing again and again, with competing interpretations colliding in a cycle of debate that shows no sign of slowing down, especially as public interest in royal-related narratives remains intensely high and constantly evolving. The way this whole Hollywood narrative gets framed online starts with a blunt claim that Meghan Markle was never actually a Hollywood star in the first place, and critics repeat it like a headline designed to cut straight through the glamour and leave only a stripped-down version of her early career on display. According to this perspective, her most recognizable role came from the series Suits, which was filmed in Toronto and aired on a cable network. And at the time, it was not considered a mainstream Hollywood powerhouse show, meaning her global recognition was limited and heavily dependent on later royal exposure rather than entertainment industry dominance. Before the royal spotlight, many American audiences allegedly had no idea who she was at all, and commentators like Tom Bauer repeatedly emphasized this gap between perceived fame and actual industry reach, arguing that her profile only escalated significantly after her relationship with Prince Harry became public. In this framing, she's described not as a breakout Hollywood figure, but as a working actress navigating mid-level television roles where stability existed but superstardom did not, and critics often use this distinction to challenge later claims of global recognition prior to royal association. The narrative then takes a more emotional turn, highlighting the idea that despite having access to entertainment industry connections, Meghan still struggled to break into major Hollywood productions, even with family ties that could have potentially opened doors in a competitive industry. Some accounts mention her uncle, Peter Markle, described in commentary as a working director involved in television films and network projects, while her aunt, by marriage, Melinda Kulea, is referenced as an actress who appeared in the A-Team during its popular run, giving her family background a noticeable industry presence. Instead, her early career included smaller roles and guest appearances, eventually leading to more visibility on television, but still not at the level of mainstream Hollywood celebrity status that dominates global entertainment headlines. Then, the narrative sharply pivots to one of the most frequently cited early career references, her time on Deal or No Deal, where she appeared as a briefcase model, standing on stage in a studio environment, participating in a format centered around suspense, presentation, and audience engagement. Commentary around this period often frames it as a stark contrast to her later royal image, pointing out the visual shift from game show stage appearances to global diplomatic and humanitarian platforms, using it as a symbolic before and after comparison. Some online discussions have gone further, with claims and rumors circulating about behind-the-scenes experiences on set, though many of these assertions remain unverified and are often disputed or treated as speculative interpretations rather than established fact. Despite this, the game show period continues to be referenced heavily in commentary culture, partly because it represents a widely recognizable point in her early career that predates fame, wealth, and global media attention. From there, the narrative transitions into the well-known interaction with British media personality Piers Morgan, which is frequently described in dramatic terms across online commentary spaces. According to this widely repeated version of events, Meghan reportedly initiated contact through social media messages, expressing admiration and suggesting a meeting during her time in London, which later led to an in-person encounter in a casual pub setting in Kensington. The meeting is often described as friendly and conversational, with Morgan allegedly believing he had formed a cordial connection, sharing drinks and conversation in what appeared to be a relaxed social exchange rather than a formal media interaction. However, critics highlight what they see as a turning point in the story, noting that shortly after this meeting, Meghan reportedly went on her blind date with Prince Harry, and from that moment forward, communication with Morgan allegedly ceased entirely. In this narrative framing, the lack of follow-up contact is interpreted by commentators as a symbolic example of shifting priorities, where one social connection is replaced by another perceived as more significant in terms of opportunity and public visibility. Supporters of this interpretation often use it to construct a broader behavioral pattern, while critics argue that this kind of framing reduces complex personal interactions into overly simplified cause and effect storytelling. Tom Bower and similar commentators are frequently cited in this discussion, where they attempt to identify recurring behavioral patterns across different relationships and professional interactions, describing what they believe to be consistent approaches to networking and social navigation. In this interpretation, a list of names is often repeated across commentary spaces, including former acquaintances, industry figures, and early career contacts, all grouped together under a single narrative lens that emphasizes repeated separation or breakdown in relationships. However, this kind of grouping is heavily debated, with many observers pointing out that public figures naturally cycle through relationships, friendships, and professional contacts as their careers evolve, especially under intense media pressure and global attention. As the narrative continues into more recent years, commentators shift focus toward Meghan's current business and media ventures, particularly streaming partnerships, lifestyle branding, and entrepreneurial projects that have faced mixed public reception. Some critics argue that certain projects were heavily promoted at launch but failed to maintain long-term momentum, while others counter that media production is inherently unpredictable, and success in streaming platforms often depends on shifting audience demand and internal corporate strategy. References are also made to her lifestyle brand initiatives, which have been described in commentary as highly visible at launch but inconsistent in long-term availability or restocking patterns. Though these interpretations vary widely depending on perspective and sourcing. Meanwhile, Prince Harry is often described in these discussions as increasingly isolated from his former social circles, with commentary focusing on reduced public appearances with old friends and a more private lifestyle centered around his current household. Some narratives exaggerate this isolation into dramatic claims, while more balanced interpretations suggest that life changes, relocation, and security considerations naturally reshape social patterns for high-profile individuals. The overall tone in this section of commentary builds toward a broader claim that public perception and private reality may diverge significantly, especially when media narratives become dominant sources of identity construction. Critics argue that once a certain narrative takes hold online, it becomes self-reinforcing, with each new rumor or interpretation feeding into an existing storyline, regardless of verification status or factual consistency. Supporters of Meghan, on the other hand, argue that her public image has been disproportionately shaped by speculative commentary, selective framing, and highly emotional interpretations of unrelated events. As these competing narratives collide, the result is a highly charged online environment where every past connection, interview clip, or public appearance becomes material for ongoing reinterpretation and debate. And within this space, commentators like Tom Bower are often positioned as central voices in the discussion, frequently referenced as authorities by critics, while others question the selectivity and framing of the claims being circulated. At the end of this segment, the narrative intentionally shifts toward audience engagement, asking viewers to reflect, comment, and participate in the ongoing discussion, reinforcing the interactive nature of online commentary culture, where opinions are continuously shaped in real time. Before the video closes, disclaimers are often included, noting that the content contains opinion, commentary, and publicly available claims, while also acknowledging that some details remain unverified or speculative and are presented primarily for entertainment and discussion purposes. Finally, viewers are encouraged to engage further by watching related content, continuing the conversation, and exploring additional claims and interpretations that expand on the broader narrative being discussed across the platform. Comment, like, and subscribe for more breakdowns, and stay tuned for the next deep dive into what insiders are saying behind closed doors and what the mainstream headlines are not telling you right now.